know anyone who takes medication for ADHD? The potential dark side of these medications is rarely considered, or for that matter, examined. Well, I've got an author I'd like you to meet who crafted a page-turning coming-of-age story about his journey through child psychiatry, drug addiction, and ultimately managing his attention span without medication. His is a unique story of getting a book to print while running a small business and raising a family. We'll carve into his book and his writing journey. Stick with us. It's going to be a good one.
Welcome to A Book Finds You podcast. This week's guest is R.L.Kramer. Join us as he shares the inspiration behind his book, along with his writing process, routines, and challenges. And now, here's your host, best-selling author, Rob Jolles.
R.L. Kramer is a carpenter by trade and author as a matter of circumstance. When he stopped taking medication for ADHD, the impact of getting off these medications pulled a book out of him, creating the literary memoir titled Hocus Focus, Coming of Age with ADD and Its Medicines. Happy to have you with us and welcome to the show. Well, we call him, he's R.L. on his book, but he's Russell to me. Welcome to the show, Russell.
Thank you, Rob. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Pleasure to have you here. Let's dive right into that book of yours. The show's called A Book Finds You, and sometimes we have to figure out how a book found somebody. I'm so worried about here. I think I already know how this book found you. but walk us through it. How did we get here?
For this book, I had been taking medication for a long time. And when I was 23, I stopped pretty much abruptly. And I had started writing about it. And I was like, well, this is a problem. And I wanted to self-examine that problem. So I started writing my own experience for the reasons of reflection. And I kept showing up at that. And then it kept unraveling. And I was examining ADHD and the medication as a human phenomenon of our time. And I met with some coaches and stuff, and they said, well, if you want to do a nonfiction book about that, do it separately and just get your story out first. So I put that aside and I just made a literary memoir. I spent many years on it and I published it.
Yeah. Now, when you write a book like that, a lot of times, of course, yours is a nonfiction book, but authors will begin with an end in mind. So that I was curious when I was looking over your materials and kind of getting ready for you. Did you have an end in mind of where that book was going to take us at the end? I know where it's taken you, but where it was going to take the reader.
I think it took the reader to, the journey in terms of myself as protagonist, from someone who was unaffected by these medications, in a good relationship with these medications, in a bad relationship with these medications, and the arc ultimately ending in the comfort of sobriety of these medications.
Right. Okay, but let me try that question from a different angle. All right.
Okay.
I know where it took you, but me as the reader, did you want to teach me? Did you want to convince me? Did you when I say end in mind, and I'm not so sure you have the answer or out there, because it's a unique book. But was there, did you find that ending as you kind of, told that story, or did you sit down and say, this is where I want to take the reader? Did you know where you were going?
Well, that's the trick with a memoir, is you can't change the truth. You're documenting the best you can, the truth as it happened. But still, what I wanted to highlight was that where I wanted to take the reader was to a resolved point. So resolution from trouble.
Got it.
But so, I didn't want to convince people one way or the other, because it's such a complicated issue. I rather wanted to create sort of just a reflection about the issue and allow people to use that sort of raw material to come to their own conclusions about medications and things like that, by examining the whole through the experience of an individual.
Okay. And to me, Russell, that's the end in mind. I mean, whether you knew it or not, that's the end you ended up with. And the question is, when you started, did you kind of know that? And listening to you, and I've met with you before, I think you did. I think that's where you were. It was like a journey. You set sail to tell your story, and at the same time, not to preach to others, but to provide information. And I think that's the end. A fictional writer says the butler's going to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
But a Russell, no, Russell, and I thought that was really kind of cool of you. Was not saying here's what you need to do. It was here's one person's journey, and you tell me if I got it right. Here's one person's journey, assess the information and figure out how you're going to utilize this information for your lives or someone that you know. Right?
Yeah,
Wrong?
or even just examine it. It doesn't, you
Yeah.
don't have to integrate it into your life. It's just an interesting tale. It's not just ADHD, it's a section of life and growing up in itself as a young man in the 90s and early aughts,
Right.
the medication being a large part, but more happens.
Now, did the coming off the medication, did you find it difficult as a writer to stay on track, to stay, kind of in the moment, in the groove?
I didn't. So the book was finished 11 years or so after I came off the medication,
Right.
over the course of 11 years. And so, I did write 7 drafts of this book that were progressive
Wow.
and different. I didn't want it out till it was right.
Wow.
And when I first started writing, yeah, I couldn't really focus. And I think the book was kind of the totem of the regrowth of my attention span, because my ability to write developed as my ability to focus in life was sort of reborn, because part of quitting these medications is learning how to focus again. Because in my case, I became so reliant on these medications for that ability to sit down and work, or stand up and work, or keep moving and work, that a testament to my own healing was the completion of this book in some ways.
Wow. You took the words right out of my mouth, by the way, because I was going to say that sure is it. As a guy who writes, I can tell you that you
Mm-hmm.
have to come to grips with sort of sitting there and fighting through the distractions and staying on course.
Yeah, there's no
But
other way it gets done.
right, you used an interesting term, Russell. You said the regrowth of your attention span. Do you feel, and we're just talking about you, okay? I know we're not making any medical claims, but do you
Right.
believe coming off that at 23 that you've actually regrown, in a sense, your attention span, your ability to focus?
I guess the point to examine is regrow, because I don't know if it was at a certain point diminished and then replenished, or if I just advanced it from where I was at. But I do feel that my time on the medications gave me a certain edge when it came to productivity that was lost when I got off the medications. And maybe it's not regrow, but I developed a new sense of action and like productivity and focus that I hadn't had ever. I developed my own process
Yeah.
to change the way I work. Yeah.
Right. And I think the word might be compensate. You find people that have different forms of disabilities, and what they do is they compensate, and other parts of them become more acute and stronger, and they're able to sort of basically figure out a workaround. It's almost like wiring. I remember talking to a doctor once for one of my children, said,
Mm-hmm.
it's like the brain is like a cockpit in an airplane, and nobody's cockpit is perfect. But what the brain does is it will rewire itself around certain deficiencies or issues.
Yeah.
And so they're actually not, they don't present themselves, but the brain has learned a different way to get there.
For sure. And you'll even in the book, I am very self-aware of sort of these kinds of things. And at times I doubt that if I ever had ADHD at all, or if I just had prolonged amphetamine withdrawal and all these other things. It's a very theoretical, almost at times, diagnosis.
Yeah. Huh.
And I
Well,
think at
yeah,
least at this point, I don't really identify with it very strongly,
right. Well,
but
let's talk
it's
about your
part of my
routine a
life.
little bit, okay?
I love writing.
Yeah. Do you have a daily writing routine or a weekly
I
writing routine?
I have a daily writing routine, and I'm pretty forgiving on myself. The way I look at it is it's okay to miss a day, but let's not miss 2 in a row. So, because you don't want to be hard on yourself and you don't want to start resenting writing, but
Yeah.
by saying, I want to show up a day, I use Stephen King's guideline for a while, which is 1,000 words a day, or just pick a number of words a day. And typically, if you can sit down and force out that 1,000 words, maybe you get 2,000, maybe you get 3,000, or whatever it is. And it gets slower for me when it comes to editing. Writing is fun. Writing is exciting. You're watching new things come out. But then when it comes to editing, I came up with many different processes, because I really edited this piece diligently. I printed it out and only edited in coffee shops. I read it on a Kindle at one time. And then my final edit, I got a free trial on an AI reading software. And while I worked, I listened to the book, and that really shines a different light, because then some things look good on paper. When you hear them said out loud, you're like, oh, no, that's not good.
Right.
So just kind of coming at editing from so many different angles, to look at the book from different angles and see things you didn't see before.
And you were using a version of AI how many years ago?
It was a year and a half ago, I think.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right.
Yeah, the book was published October 2023.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
And to your point, my father's no longer here, but I know he smiles when I tell this story, that I kind of wish that I had used that program, because see, sometimes you can't see it, but you can hear it. And in the dedication of one of my books, I dedicated to my dad, who was big in the Lions Club, and he was the King Lion, and whatever that is. I was never been in the Lions Club,
Yeah.
but in the acknowledgement, I say, I want to. I'm talking about integrity, and I'm talking to the person who taught me all about honesty and integrity, Lion Lee Jollis. Okay, well, in print that's Lion, but
Yeah.
I have an audio book on that, and a few people called me, sent me emails going, "What was that?"
Yeah, your dad's nickname is a liar. So,
right, right. We haven't entered the introduction yet, and already we got a problem. But anyway, I think that's kind of cool. So I also like the way what you just said. So I just want people to hear that. I think people think that you sit down and you put down 1,000 words a day, and I think that's it's a wonderful thing to do. If you can pull it off, fantastic. But you notice when I asked the question, I actually corrected myself. I said, "Tell me, how much do you write a day?" I mean a week, because usually there is some bargaining that goes on. I don't like to bargain a week out. In other words, say I didn't hit my week, but I don't mind missing a day. It just means I have another day that's going to be a little bit tougher. Uh, and then we get to whatever that, if it's 5,000 words, a week, or whatever we want, whatever that number is, we can get to it. And that way, life happens. You've got a family. The family's doing this, the family's doing that. And so is Russell. But Russell's still going to get his words in. He's just going to piece that puzzle together a little bit differently that week.
oh yeah, and sometimes it's just, did I touch it? Did I remind myself that this project still exists? It's because I run a business, I have other things going on, but it's so important. And it reminds me, when I was finishing my book, I skipped out on like a family thing, and I was talking to my wife, and I think I was putting in sort of a binge, because I don't know about you, but if I start writing for 2 hours, 7 hours is easy. So sometimes I would on the weekend, like, just put a binge in, and saying it to her. And sometimes you say things to other people and you realize it, but I was like, this is the only way this gets done.
Right.
Nobody's asking me for this. Nobody, I don't have an editor or anybody. So you really, when you're an individual person writing your first book, I feel like you have to have a lot of belief in yourself and stuff like that, really, just to push through.
Oh, absolutely. Or you're going to abandon the project. And now that you're in the authors club, welcome aboard. You're going to bump into a lot of people, if you haven't already, who are going to tell you of their dream of writing a book. And when they follow that up, they'll go, I actually started 9 years ago, whatever, and they've abandoned it here and they've given it up on it there. It's one of the reasons why, when you said, you kind of were redoing drafts, it kind of caught me by surprise. Did you start with a general outline to tell this story?
No, because when I started it, I was deep in the pits of amphetamine withdrawal.
Okay.
So when I started it, it was real avant-garde. And then it evolved. And what I would do is I'd kind of write a draft, and then maybe I'd leave it for a few months, and then I'd return to it and go, wow, this is trash. And now that coming with fresh eyes, and I'd rewrite it and rewrite it. And eventually, I kept coming up with different ways, and I kept processing the drafts. And then eventually, I did have an outline. I used index cards. I tried everything till I found what was my process. And what kind of worked for me was sitting down and writing one clear draft, start to finish, no research, no side material, no chapters, just a big long scroll of the whole thing. And then I took that big scroll and put it on the left side of my screen. And then on the right side, I put another empty document. And I would slowly read that one and craft it. So that one was kind of just a stream of consciousness, what happens. And then some of those single sentences would become paragraphs, and some paragraphs would become a sentence. And I just processed that stream draft into a nicely crafted piece.
That's what I love about this show, by the way. You
Mm-hmm.
can't imagine how many different processes there are, and there's no right or wrong process. The right process is the one that works for you. That's called the right process, but it doesn't necessarily work for other people, because I'm the same way. I'll start going through, well, I can't touch it till I have a full outline, and a full outline, people are like, well, that's good, but not everybody writes that way. Did you do any dictation?
No.
Yeah, now I've had two authors out of the last three that have been on the show
Mm-hmm.
that are actually writing and walking around their neighborhoods, and which I don't think I could pull off at all. But they immediately said, "Me either," till I did it for about a week, and then I got better at it, and then I would take it, download it, have it print out, and basically run the two documents that you're talking about. But
Mm-hmm.
it's just that there's so many different ways to craft a book. The
Oh yeah.
biggest thing is that you did, and I applaud you for it, is you can't quit, you can't give up, you can't stop. You gotta see it through. I wish I had known you 2 years ago, what year ago, uh, when you were redoing and redoing, because I would have slapped your hand and said, "Stop it, stop redoing this manuscript, and let somebody else take a look at it too." Because
Oh yeah, I had beta
sometimes,
readers.
yeah, good, good,
Oh yeah, I had about 12 beta readers complete it.
all
But
right.
yeah, yeah. And then I did have a copy editor as well.
Good. Okay, good. I'm feeling better. I kept thinking, this guys keeps adding, because sometimes what happens is, and as a professional speaker, this happens in keynotes and seminars, is we can talk about do something and then get tired of it ourselves. Doesn't mean the audience is tired of it. They're hearing it for the first time. But I'm
Mm-hmm.
reading it or I'm saying it for the fifth time, and you know what? It doesn't have the pizzazz I thought it did. Well, of course not. Keep rereading it, it's going to lose a little bit of that energy. Let's give it to the beta readers, which you did, and they'll keep us on course. So, okay, good. All right. Now I will no longer slap your hand. Good
Yeah, the
work.
beta readers are huge.
They are. Well, because
Yeah.
we can't really trust ourselves. We can trust ourselves with the outline. We can trust ourselves grinding out a manuscript, but reading it and rereading it and rereading it, that's where I think the trust can get a little bit shaky. And this is just one man's opinion, by the way.
Oh
I
yeah.
but I remember when I was in high school, I was in one of Rogers and Hammerstein's plays. I don't know which one it was, and I remember I only remember it was Rogers and Hammerstein, because I was rehearsing, and I went to the director. He said, "I think I can say this line better." And he said, "I'm sure you think you can. But Rogers and Hammerstein were pretty good at this, and you've also said it 5,000 times over the last 3 months. You're getting tired of that line. It's still a good line. Leave it alone. Leave it alone." All right,
Yeah.
let's talk about the publishing side for you. So the manuscript, your beta readers are finally going, you know what? This guy's got something. You're feeling good about it. Then what?
Then I just slapped it. I did everything myself. I just got on KDP and put it up there.
Hmm.
I had recently I did have a cover design because at the time of publishing, like in my personal life, like there was so much going on. I had all this debt and all this stuff, and it was kind of a mess. And it was crazy that I even finished this book. At the time, it's kind of like everything was going poorly. But I was like, I got this book. I got this one thing. And I really just it was a very triumphant thing for me to finish this, especially due to my life circumstance. But I didn't have money at the time for anything. My cousin did the design, never done a design. And I was doing everything I could. I was trying to market online, and I just put that thing up there. And yeah, sold some and just put it up there. And it's just there.
Good. And I'm assuming we're on Amazon. We're at,
Yeah,
most of the
Amazon,
online
Ingram
stores.
Spark, Drafted
Good.
Digital, everywhere a person can get a book. themselves, it's there. It's in the my local county's libraries,
Okay.
just everything I could.
Good. Okay, so let's stay there though. Let's talk about the marketing side of this thing, which is where many authors lose their oomph, so to speak. They
Oh yeah, I could talk
it
about
gets a
that.
little you're worn out, and actually that's when you got to kick it into another gear. Tell me about the marketing efforts you put forth.
I have some social media things. I try to get on podcasts, and what you're talking about is very true, because I think I came into it really hard in the beginning and I may have burned myself out, and I'm actually just now kind of rebuilding the courage to come back to it, because what's discouraging about it is when you are starting, if anybody is starting, you come out with it guns blazing, ready to go, just like this is the best book ever, and when you don't get that feedback, you're like, am I delusional? Am I wrong? Actually, maybe there's not a market for this. And when you don't get the feedback, you start, at least I have experienced some doubt, some maybe I'm bothering everybody, maybe I better tone it down. And and that can be really damaging to it, and it's exhausting because I've put hours and hours into creating like short form videos, for TikTok and Instagram and YouTube shorts. And when you don't get a return on your investment of time, it can be really discouraging.
Yeah.
However, there was a month where I did post every day, and I edited these videos in Premiere Pro. They were not just like pull up my phone. And I did have more sales that month than any other month. But I got a full-time job. I got a wife and a child. It's difficult to break through. So I'm just now kind of restarting the engine on marketing and considerations, and also working on more books, because everything you read online for self-publishing, they say the best thing to do for a book is to write another one.
Hmm. Okay. Actually, I hadn't heard that before. What's the logic behind that? Did you chase that story down?
Yeah, yeah. Well, if they read your second book, they're going to check out your other ones.
Okay.
So and also you're developing as a writer, and I think also it keeps the enthusiasm alive, because I think writers, obviously we like writing.
Yeah.
And if we're spending all that, the fraction of our life that we have for writing on digital marketing, we're not kindling the fire that is the reason we're doing this. So I think even, I'm writing a novel. It has nothing to do with ADD or medications. It's just fun. And that's just keeping me excited.
Good. Good, good, good. All right, so let me pull a couple things from what you just said, because I want people who are listening to understand where we're coming from here. One, you can't quit on the manuscript. Okay. What Russell is telling you is, listen, you can get worn out, and then you got to start the marketing, and then there's this thing called life that goes on.
Oh
Fine,
yeah.
but I just want people, if you're really thinking of writing a book, just remember, Rob Jollis, mythically, I'm giving you permission to quit, but you can't quit until the manuscript's done. You can't start the second book until that manuscript's done, because this is where we lose a lot of people who want to be writers, who want to get a book out. They, as you said, you start reading it. Am I delusional? What's going on? No, blinders on, manuscript done. I told a story once where I'm 30 seconds, but I was swimming a race, didn't feel like it was, I was beat up. And I told myself, you know what, just don't show up, just don't show up. And I made a bargain. I said, you know what, show up. If you want to quit, quit on the beach. Don't quit in bed. And that's a metaphor in a sense to, if you're working on a book, you want to quit on it, quit when you finish the manuscript, because you're not going to quit. By the way,
Yeah.
I went into the water that day. I swam a bad race. It wasn't real good, but I made it from shore to shore. Okay. Uh, that's the world of a writer. That's what we do. And so don't quit in bed. Get that manuscript done. And I know you're going to have these other books gnawing at you. Let them gnaw. Keep another open up a file. Just get that manuscript done. Then really cool things start to happen, but you got to get it done. And we're talking to a guy who got it done. I admire people, particularly guys like you, Russell, who are just grinders. You got a lot of things going on.
Yeah.
And yet you 7 drafts. You told your story on little to no budget. You did it yourself. Kudos to you, sir. Seriously. All right.
Thanks.
Good. How's the second book coming along?
Oh, it's good.
Yeah.
It's
Is it
it's
done
a
yet?
it's fully outlined.
Okay, good. Good. It's fictional, this one?
Yeah, totally fiction.
It's crossing
Yeah.
into the fictional world, a
Yeah,
place
well,
I've never
part of
been.
what writing too, and I wanted to say back to what you're saying
Yeah.
about using diction is, I was in one of my maybe fifth draft, I was reading it and I was like, there's something about this that doesn't sit well with me. And what it was that it sounded like the way I spoke. And I started to read a lot. And before I was maybe 5 books a year and 12, and now like 30. I really elevated my reading. I tried to replace scrolling with reading. Anytime I was looking at my phone and it wasn't actually productive, I'm saying I could just do this with a book. I want to stimulate my thoughts. I'll do it with a book. And the more books I read, the more I realized that books sound different than talking. And this is going into the weeds more than a lot of people do, but I wanted it to have a literary sense to it. So I came into it with a way that I wanted it to sound written, I guess. But that deep dive into, so I pulled from literature and prose and classics, in the writing of this. I wanted it to carry that, and that kind of just got me into that kind of world and writing as well.
So let me make sure I got this right. So you read it and it sounded a lot like you,
It sounded like the way I talked.
and that
Like,
was a
yeah, man,
problem for you, cause why?
it wasn't a problem. But from reading so much, I noticed that books, I don't know, I wanted it to sound a little more literary. Maybe it was a mistake in
Well,
stuff,
I don't
but
know. There's some people that make a very nice living called authentic. I'm not going to get this right, folks, but authentic book editors. But the word authenticity is in there, and
mhm.
their job is the complete opposite, Russell. They're reading from people and they say, "I just read your book, Russell, and it didn't sound like you at all."
Oh,
And
it sounds like me, but
now, by the way, that was hypothetical. Now, I have read your book, and it sounds just like you. So okay. I'm
yeah.
giving you an example of where people will pay. Editors will ask an author and say, I know at least one case of this. They'll say, we will publish this book if you contract with an authentic voice editor. I think that's the term they use, and you
Hmm.
have them. We met with you. We want this in your voice. It's not in your voice. You went the opposite path. Yeah.
No, no, I didn't, I wasn't, it wasn't like I had a, what do you call it, alter ego or anything
Hmm.
like that. I developed my authentic voice into a literary voice that is
Okay.
different than the way I speak. It was, I think what I'm saying is perhaps the original book was a little too casual.
Got it. I
It
got you
sounded,
now.
yeah, it was a little more like, hey, what's the deal with that?
Right.
Rather than being like, and we should examine this a little closer.
You got a little too authentic, it sounds like.
Yeah, it was more journaly. So I think it was kind of an evolution for me to stop journaling and actually write, because I don't have any formal training as a writer. So this to me was you know a development.
Yeah. Any mentors that you've got that you want to give a shout out to?
My uncle Bill, he helped me a lot. He was the one person the whole time was reading with me, and
Good.
and
All
he's
right.
a big writer, and he always encouraged me, and I would share my drafts with him,
Oof.
and
Very
also
valuable. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And he passed right as it was published, and dedicated to him. And also, the book I think almost was out of my life completely. And I work as a contractor and a handyman, and I was overworking at this client's house, and she mentioned that she does like a natural. She's a therapist and she works with people, and I mentioned, oh yeah, I done all this research on ADD and stuff like that. I wrote a book, and she's like, oh, that's neat. I'd like to read it. And I was like, yeah, sure. And then I came back to her house to finish the work, and she's like, did you bring your book? And I was like, oh, you actually want to read it? And she was like, yeah, I used to be an English teacher as well. And I said, sure. And I read it, and she called me the next day at 7 in the morning. And I remember being like, oh God, did I break a water pipe in her house or something? And she said, I've finished it, and you got something here. And she continually mentored me and talked to me and read my drafts and became someone I could talk to about writing. And that
Good.
was really valuable, because I think the book may have been forgotten on a shelf had she not encouraged me to write it.
So glad you brought these two people in, because we think of writing as a very solitary experience, and yet there's some really important people along the way. There's your readers that you have. There's your spouse frequently. There's the kids putting up with it a little bit too. But then there's, the uncle and the friend. It takes a village, right? At the end of the day,
Oh
they're
yeah,
all really necessary. Yeah.
and the copy editor, because I had someone who was going to copy edit for free and they dropped out, and I was in like a Facebook group of self-publishers, and the copy editor reached out on her own, and she liked what I was doing and offered to do it for as a gift too.
Oh,
So I mean, a lot of people really supported me in this, and I was
good.
really grateful for it.
I'm gonna
And
go reach over for that book again because I have a copy, and I better see their names in those acknowledgments.
oh yeah.
Good, 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 good. Well, the book is called Hocus Focus, Coming of Age with ADD and Its Medicines. We're talking to my good friend Russell here, Russell Kramer. And Russell, I just want to thank you for being on the show. I think normally I spend a little bit more time on the process, but the topic and the content and the way that you were able to get yourself across the finish line to me was the story here. And I wanted to stay on that a little bit longer. So thanks for opening up and telling us about it. Wish you nothing but luck. How do people get a hold of you?
I do have a website, rlkramer.us. And also, I think out of all the social media is the one that hits the most, where I kind of do help people get off amphetamines and provide the resources that I've found with that is just on YouTube. Same deal, R.L. Kramer.
Good.
And
And
from my
spell
website,
Kramer, will
social
you?
media, Kramer.
Kramer. There's a few ways to spell that name. Well, good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I hope a few people drop by that website. Russell, nothing but good luck to you, sir. It was
Yeah.
good seeing you again. Russell and I had a cup of coffee. I thought it was 5 years ago. He told me it was about 9 months ago. I'm having a little trouble with my calendar these days, but in any
Yeah.
case, it's good to see you again.
Yeah, and thanks for reaching out and having me. And for the
Yeah.
show, I listened to every episode you've done, and it's a valuable resource for anyone who's working on a book. So I think, or who is a writer at all. I think it's great that you're doing this. So thank you for
Good.
that.
Good. Well, we will thank the Maryland Writers Association as well for putting some muscle behind this, Russell. Nothing but the best for you. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
Well, we'll do it again as well as we can next time, everybody. Until then, stay safe.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed today's guest author, we'd love you to rate, review, and share this episode with others. If you'd like more information on today's guest or the Maryland Writers Association, please visit our website at marylandwriters.org. You can also find out about the history of the Maryland Writers Association by listening to our first podcast, Episode 0.